Welcome, fellow blues fans, to the Blues Society of Northwest Florida's podcast. I am Paul Stadden, your host. Happy to be talking to you about all things the blues. Got a cool show this week. There was a great show that if you missed it, shame on you. This past Monday, Wayne Sharp and the Sharpshooters came to the Blues Jams and killed it. And I'm happy to be bringing to you this week Wayne Sharp of Wayne Sharp and the Sharpshooters. Make sure you head on over to Amazon.com and get yourself a copy of Living with the Blues, the new album by Wayne Sharp and the Sharpshooters. You just heard bringing in the show, I Got My Gree on You, one of the songs off of the album, one of the more popular ones on Amazon. And I'm going to be playing for you Put Me Down and Let Me Walk. And coming up after the song, you're going to hear a great interview with Wayne. He sat down with me for about 20 minutes. We got to talk about how he got started in the blues, as well as his time with Michael Burks. So without further ado, here is Put Me Down and Let Me Walk. Wayne Sharp of Wayne Sharp and the Sharpshooters, welcome. Thank you so much for joining the Blues Society of Northwest Florida's podcast. You put on a killer show at Lily Marlene's this past Monday. Thank you for gracing us with your presence, man.
Oh, wow. Man, you're very welcome, Paul. It was an incredible little venue. I really enjoyed the quarter down there, and, of course, see you and Mike Bounds with the Society. It was such a pleasure to have y'all's support. And man, we had a great show, and y'all have evidently developed one heck of a following down there, man. And your blues jam was probably one of the finest I've seen. And as we both know, I'm not a young guy. I've been doing this a while.
And I prefer to say you know what you're doing. I don't say that you've been around for a while. I just say that you know what you're doing. That's how I like to prefer to think about it.
Well, bless your heart, man.
Well, let's start off with, I guess, the simplest question. Who are your biggest influences? Who got you into blues in the first place?
Oh, wow, man. The question got me into the blues kind of narrows it down because I got into music first. And fortunately, blues is a large part of what we call music these days, and or even in those days. So I'd like to say, first off, I got into music because I believe because music got into me. I didn't have a whole lot of choice. I was at a Mardi Gras parade at about 5 years old in Louisiana, standing between two parked cars when the drum section came by in the band, and the the power of the rhythm and the drums, I literally wet my pants. and I didn't know what that was, but it was way before Women or Money, and I had never felt quite that way. And I said, man, I think I need some more of that. I couldn't figure out what had happened, and I went home damn near in tears and, wondering why it had moved me like that.
Right,
physically moved me beyond any thought process. It was incredible. So music kind of got me first, and I grew up in Louisiana, south of New Orleans, and I grew up listening to nothing but the Creole gumbo mix of the Caribbean rhythms and soul music and blues, and it's just such a gumbo, not to overuse the phrase, down in Louisiana, that you really get to hear and play a whole lot of genres all within maybe one or two that being exercised in that area.
Well, let me ask you this then.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, how has the blues changed over the years then? I mean, you're talking about this Creole sound that you like so much, and you've seen a lot of what the blues is and has become. Now, do you try to stick to a particular subset of the blues? What inspired you? Do you try to be a purist, or heck, do you just play what sounds good?
Well, if truth be told, man, if we want to narrow it down to when did I get into the blues, I had played with like C.C. Hill and Luther Ingram, If Loving You Is Wrong, I Don't Want to Be Right, Johnny Taylor, and Candy Staten, and God, Eddie Floyd, and Mel and Tim, and just all kinds of the Stax guys. I was in the Chitlin Circuit thing down here. I was the only white guy in the band. And so when them cats had come through singing and doing their thing, Al Green, and they didn't have a band, I was with the baddest little about 10-piece black group here on the coast with horns and stuff, so we almost always got the gigs. And so I was already into, like, I hate to sound like it's a racial thing, but it's just that the black music in general for me was what appealed to me because it contained passion. There was passion and feeling. When Otis Redding sang something, it meant something, and when I did the stuff by the Hollies or any other band, not to put them down or disparage them in any way, it was just kind of more like, singing, songy, Mary Had a Little Lamb kind of real topical kind of stuff. But when you sang stuff like If Loving You Is Wrong, I Don't Want to Be Right, or Try a Little Tenderness, if you didn't put some ass in it or some soul in it, you weren't going to be able to pull it off. It wasn't about your ability to run up and down the keyboard or to have a range like Christina Aguilera. It's about being able to put your heart and make the story real. Feel it. I don't sing or play hardly any music that I can't totally hook into emotionally. And if you noticed the other night, I'm not ashamed to say, when I did Empty Promises, man, I cried.
Oh, man.
I can't hardly get through it some nights. I was in North Carolina. I had to leave the stage.
Oh, wow.
Music is my life, and I don't think I couldn't live no longer without it than I do without my heart.
Man, well, I can definitely hear that in your singing and your playing.
I'm choked up right now, bro.
That's all right. Listen, you can go ahead and cry on my podcast all you want.
No, man, I ain't gonna. It's just a great emotion. It's the most wonderful feeling in the world. I saw a Guitar Center commercial the other day, not to give them an unpaid plug, but I thought it was the coolest catchphrase they had on their thing that says that we sell the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that completely. It's not just gear, man. I mean, gear helps you get that feeling just because you get that right thing under your fingers or, the right microphone or that thing that makes it sound right. But man, which actually leads me into my next question for you, man, because, I mean, I hear you singing, but I'm also seeing you playing that old Hammond B3. How'd you get into the keyboard? I mean, you're talking about all these singers that you love, and you obviously sing, but how'd you get into the keyboard, too?
Wow. Too wild. When I was a youngster, my mother, my mom was just an amazing human anyway, but she just had the art and the music in her, and she could play the baddest piano and had not one lesson. Quick story, her mother traded 60 chickens in Houma, Louisiana to buy her a piano, to get her an old upright piano from a lady down the street. And so I grew up with my mom and her sister just playing the rear end off of a piano. Her left hand's better than my right hand, and
right.
She never had a lesson. So, I got into the music that way, but I wanted to be a drummer, man, and I was a drummer till about the 8th grade, and a fella took my drums, and I never saw him on my drums again. And my mom's piano was in the living room, and I picked out What I Say by Ray Charles, and Heart and Soul, and just my sister Diana put my hands on the keys the first time and said, "Look at these 4 little chords, these little ice cream changes we call them, and it's the chords to Heart and Soul, that you play."
Yeah.
And what all the songs in the 50s just about were those 4 chords.
Right.
Yeah, so I fell into the piano just goofing, and I ended up just stumbling into a job at about 15, 16 with some local high school guys, man, and I got into playing, and the band leader told me I was buying a B3 in 1967, and it changed my life.
Oh, man, and right era for it, too. I mean, all the great B3 players you got. I mean, I'm a rock guy, so I always think of, like, John Lord at Deep Purple with that distorted, overdriven Hammond sound. Oh.
Yeah, it was actually Felix Cavallari with the Rascals first, with his, all we had was AM radio back at that time. And,
right.
And I was in a house band playing 7 nights a week for almost 3 years at this place. And I was just a kid going to high school. Get up, I played at 3 a.m. and I was in high school at 7:30.
Yeah.
And so we had to learn the top 10 to keep the job. So we always knew everything off the radio, and there was no FM.
Right.
So I ended up getting a job as a keyboardist as opposed to a drummer because that's what they needed. And
right.
he made me he made me buy a B3. And between him and that B3, it turned me into this monster that you're looking at. And I don't mean monster like a great player. I mean just a monster.
No, come on.
I fell in love with the Hammond, man, because the Hammond was just really something else. And then I kind of formed my own thing over the years because I had no Hammond heroes, not ever having dreamed of being a Hammond player. I used it to where I thought it could enhance the other things that I did and the people I played with, and it turned out to be a perfect foil for everything I ran into, including Mr. Michael Burks, which I was trying to get to a little quicker, but if I had to say the person that really got me into the blues, strictly the blues like I am now, it would have been when I met Michael Burks.
Well, tell me about working with Michael. Tell me about him. For those who don't know who are listening to this, Michael passed away in 2012, recorded one last great album in 2012 that was just released recently that you played on. So tell me about working with him.
Well, I met Michael Burks in 2000, and he needed somebody for 5 shows. I had met them. I was cutting my own album, went to dinner, and they were playing at the venue where I went to eat. The bass player happened to be a guy I started with 20-something years earlier.
Wow.
And we exchanged phone numbers. Michael needed somebody temporarily. I went and played the next day after the first night without any rehearsals, anything. He had such a good time, and so had I, incidentally. He asked me to stay. And it turned into almost 13 years of playing, and with Michael. And Michael was the real deal. But what made him I think our thing different and really happen is that I was a little ahead of him. I was almost 10 years older than Michael, and Michael had started in the woods of Camden, Arkansas, and he played the real blues and the real stuff. With his father had been with Sonny Boy Williams, and Michael had grown up literally 5, 6 years old playing with, some of those guys I mentioned a while ago, like Johnny Taylor, etc., Albert King, whoever. Oh, but then he got to be a teenager, and it was Hendrix. And I've seen pictures of Michael with the afro and the moccasins and the vest and the whole thing, the psychedelic thing. So then he put it down for many years, became an incredible mechanic at Lockheed Martin, and fell back into it when Tip Willis asked him to sit in one night in Atlanta, and he kind of reignited the fire in his soul, went home, pulled the guitar out after 13 years, and started playing. And I ran into him a few years after that. And he went back to it, and when he went back to it, I guess he brought with him, that history of his father and the real hardcore old blues, old R&B. And then he had that blazing contemporary guitar playing like Hendrix, and I mean, he could just smoke with the baddest fiery players, the young white guys, if I might be so generous with my words.
Sure.
The rock guys that were doing all the fast and this and that, he incorporated that passion with those abilities, and I think that's what made us different. When we played, he loved the B3. We were one of the few bands I ever saw in 12 years that drug a B3 to every show, willingly and happily.
Right.
And and I think my kind of southern rock and R&B and my gumbo thing that we discussed, really played to his strengths because I could do the old school. I'm older than him. I know it. I was there. I could do the old school, which made him really happy, and I also was an old pro, and I would support him. I would give him the platform to fly.
Yeah.
And that's why I think he held on to me through 8 bass players and about 4 drummers, is because we had a little bit of something between us. And what's funny is diametrically opposed personalities off stage. Michael and I didn't probably have 5 phone calls in 12 years on a personal level, just to BS or whatever.
Right.
It was the only thing that mattered to me and him. It didn't matter if he was whipping my head off or I was cussing him down. When he counted to 4, he knew he wanted me standing there, and I wanted him standing there. And nobody else, mattered that much.
Well, then who would be in your ideal band then, Wayne? I mean, if you had to assemble a band for anybody in history, I mean, would it be Wayne? Would it be Michael on guitar? I mean, who would you have around you?
Wow. Well, you get two angles. You'd have to look at that. Being with Michael, when you get with a lot of the front guys, a front man or a guy that's got the strength and the ability to lead, that's, if you're a professional, you'll tend to, if you're a team player, you don't try to play quarterback if you're the tackle.
Right.
You all have your position. So if I was to be behind somebody, well, right now and where I am, then obviously it would be, I would say Michael Burks. I would love for what we would, if he was still here, it wouldn't have stopped. We'd still be doing it.
Sure.
Because I have to believe that, because that's what we did for 12 years. And there were a lot of reasons to stop if you wanted to stop over the bull,
Yeah.
in life. But the ideal band obviously was to be fronting my own band, which I'm doing now and was doing before I met Michael at every opportunity. Like I taught my sons who got to play with me, and
the other Sharps.
What I've told I've told them all their lives. You be an artist when you can afford to be an artist.
Right.
So I like fronting my own thing, doing my own thing when I could afford to do it. But when I couldn't, I was a professional sideman. I did Michael's show. I stayed in my spot. It didn't hurt me. It didn't make me want to sabotage the band to get somewhere. A professional does the job he's hired to do and do the best he can and support the cat. And my ideal band is the one I have now.
Well, that was going to be my next question. I want to talk about the Sharpshooters now. You got a new album, Living with the Blues. Tell me about the album. Tell me about the band. I mean, what is it about you, about this band, this lineup, this album that you want people to know?
Well, this could get emotional for me, but what everybody...
Hey, I told you this is a podcast that allows crying, so that's fine, man.
Well, I just want to say that, Michael passed. Yeah. So the word living with the blues almost touches me when I even hear it. That's my own record. Because that's what we all do every day. Living is the blues. It's not about being sad, because blues tends to have a connotation of sadness.
Right,
but
right.
Blues is just life. And having my sons play with me, or even anybody, the ideal band is to have cats that love what they're doing and can do what they're doing.
Yeah.
Michael Burks. I've even lost the gist of the question, man. I've gotten carried away. You asked me.
Asking you about the new album.
Yeah, the new album.
Blues
how I got here. Well, because I started thinking about Michael. The way I got here was my brother and one of my best friends dropped dead in my lap in Atlanta airport. Yeah. And my world changed that day. I had pretty much accepted that, we were going to play until that happened, I guess. And I guess when it did, I couldn't believe it. And I quickly realized, that I had been living the dream with Michael. And it had been successful. And we had 14 nominations for BMAs, and we won 2 last year for best album overall. Every blues album that was put out and up for contention, we won. best album out of all genres.
Mm-hmm.
And then we won the best, and then we also won best album in the contemporary genre. You know, and I'm proud to say we, because it was a group effort. It's the album that won, and all of the above. But that's kind of how this group happened. The minute Michael dropped, I was unemployed. A lot of people don't realize that. It's just not like I work for IBM and I have workers' comp, or we have a 401k, or there's 10 people waiting and standing in line just like him that can keep the thing just going. You know, Walmart will stay open whether Sam Walton dies or not. Well, when Michael Burks dies, the Michael Burks band doesn't live on.
Yeah.
Stevie Ray Vaughan's band can't hardly make a living. The Elvis Presley band ain't making a living. Some of the greatest bands in the world, you know, have a problem with the politic of the business when it's over. It's just the way it is. So I returned to what I've always has been the dream, and I'm being at my age, at my point in my career. It was time to do what I was doing when I met Michael, and that is the Sharpshooter Band. I started the Sharpshooter Band in 1980. I had J. Johnny Johnson from the Allman Brothers and Lamar Williams from the Allman Brothers. Mm-hmm. Lamar had replaced Barry Oakley when he died. J-Mo started the band with Dwayne. The gentleman that introduced J-Mo to Dwayne is on the record and helped me produce it. He co-produced a guy named Jackie Avery. He wrote These Arms of Mine for Otis Redding. He's produced Johnny Taylor, the Shy-Lights, everybody. Wilson Pickett, Aretha Franklin, and Muscle Shoals. That's how he knew Dwayne and wanted J-Mo to meet Dwayne. And that was when Sharpshooter started, 1980 in California. And it was always a dream. I've been writing the music since I was, you know, a youngster. And it's always been what I wanted to do. But I've always been a professional and taken opportunities as they come in this business, because it's a tough business.
Well, I'll tell everyone who's listening, please go make sure that if the Wayne Sharp Band is coming to where you live, please go watch them. And I hope that you come back to Pensacola soon, Wayne. You're a killer band. We loved having you at the Blues Jams. And please, you are always, always, always welcome in Pensacola.
Man, thank you so much. Mr. Mike Bounds said the same thing, and you guys have treated us, you know, with nothing but the respect, and hopefully you felt the same respect from us by the way we handle ourselves.
Sure did.
And do our job, and man, I had a great time, and it was such a pleasure meeting you that night. You're a very warm and genuine person, man, and I certainly appreciate you following up and being who you say you are.
Our pleasure in having you. Wayne Sharp of Wayne Sharp and the Sharpshooters. Make sure you go to WayneSharpBlues.com. Keep up with what's going on in the band. And again, anytime you're willing to come back to Pensacola, we want to have you, Wayne.
It's going to be soon, Paul. I can't wait, my friend. And God bless everybody out there, man. And please support my buddy Paul and Mr. Mike Bounds at the Northwest Florida Blues Society. These guys are doing a very noble thing. And it takes a very generous, noble person to do it. So my compliments and love to you guys, man, and thank you for letting me be part of it.
Thanks, Wayne.
You're very welcome, Paul.
And if you're a fan of guys like Wayne Sharp and the Sharpshooters, make sure you support the Blues Society of Northwest Florida. The jams are every single Monday night starting at 7 o'clock with a solo artist, and then followed by a band at 8 o'clock, and then you've got the Blues Jammers coming up at 9. There is a drum you can toss some money into to help support this organization, to send bands up to the International Blues Challenge in Memphis every single year. So if you want to do some good in your community, here's a really good way to do it. Hope to see you at the Jams Pensacola, downtown Pensacola, in Lillimar Lanes and Seville Quarter. Until next week, I am Paul Stadden, your host with the Blues Society of Northwest Florida's podcast. Who knows who I'm going to have next week, but you know it'll be somebody helping keep the blues alive.